Well, something happened with our microphone today, and all the audio for the video you're about to see was not captured. When we went to edit it, it was completely gone. So, what you're about to experience is some really bad lip syncing. Most of the time, I probably won't even try, but we'll get all the information to you as succinctly as possible. Hey everyone, Jason McCann from Mountain Tactical, and today I want to talk about one of the biggest shortcomings of the Tikka rifle system. And what it is it's the case overall length that you're limited to with the factory magazine system. And hand loaders have seen this for years. They want to load a long cartridge like this 338 Win Mag with a 300 grain Berger hybrid, and the case overall length is too long to fit in the factory magazine. And there's a couple solutions. I mean, you can single load the round in your chamber, but in a hunting situation where you want to actually have more than one round in the magazine, it's just not a viable solution. So something we've been looking for a while is, what is that solution? So an obvious solution is use an AICS long action magazine. They're designed to hold rounds at 3.60 inches case overall length. They are a military standard. They're extremely well built. There's a couple clones out there made by Accurate Mag that holds different calibers, and you have the True Accuracy International mags themselves. And other companies have manufactured bottom metals for the Tikka that allow you to use these magazines. However, you're still limited to SAMI spec COAL. You're not really gaining anything other than capacity. And capacity you saw there in the screen. I have a 10-round AICS magazine that I've used in competition with this particular system we were testing here. And it especially becomes an issue when you want to do something like a 28 nozzler or 26 nozzler, and the case is actually too fat to fit in a Tikka magazine, so then you're stuck with single loading. Or you can use the 338 Lapua magazines from AICS or one of the clones. So what's the solution here? And that is what we're going to go over today. We've been able to create a product. It is not a drop-in product. It does require, or we recommend, professional installation, but it allows for reliable feeding from an Accuracy International style long action magazine with the full 3.6 inches case overall length. And so far nobody's been able to do that for the Tikka, and we're very, very excited to launch this particular product. So because it is not a drop-in product like our other products, we want to make sure that you understand what you're getting into, what is needed to get this product installed, and how to go, what the best way to go about doing it, whether you want to hire a gunsmith, if you have a friend who's a machinist who can do some of the basic modifications to the rifle system, or if you feel comfortable taking this on yourself. Obviously, whenever you modify a rifle from its original design, you're entering into a choose your own adventure situation, and so it might require a little extra elbow grease to make the rifle work and function the way you want it to. So as I said before, this is not a drop-in product, but we want to make sure that you understand what it takes to install it, and let's dive right into this. So as always, when you're working with your rifle, doing any sort of modification to it, make sure it is unloaded. And in this case, we're going to be removing the bolt from the rifle, and we're actually going to be taking the action out of the stock. So take out the magazine. You're going to want to flip the rifle over and remove the 2 action screws in the bottom. And if it's one of the newer Tikkas, it's a T25 Torx head. If it's one of the older T3s, it's a flat head screw. And if you have the flathead screws, take a moment, upgrade those to our Elite action screws. You'll love having the Torx head versus the flathead. So those 2 screws come out, give a good tug on the stock, and it comes right off. And there you go. So now we have a barreled action ready for modification. So what we're going to do here is we have to modify the trigger housing. The bottom line is there's just simply not enough room as is to fit a full-sized AICS magazine. There's enough room in the magwell on the bottom of the rifle, but there's not enough room to actually fit the outer dimensions of the magazine. So now that we have our barreled action out of the stock, the first step is to remove the trigger housing. This is accomplished with a 5mm Allen key. Remove that retention bolt, set it to the side, and then this is the magazine spring, retention spring. We don't need that, but we do need the retention bolt. And then remove the trigger from the action. Now, personally, I have found that it's easier to install and remove the trigger when the safety is on, but your mileage may vary. So now, the first step is to replace the bolt stop. The reason why we have to replace the bolt stop is because we need to increase the travel of the bolt inside the action. And the bolt stop is what, well, stops the bolt from traveling backwards. So, removing it is fairly simple. We have a new bolt stop, a new pin, and a new spring included in the kit. This is going to replace your existing bolt stop, pin, and spring on the rifle. To remove it, you just remove the retention pin and the bolt stop pulls right off. Set those aside. We no longer need those. So we have our new bolt stop, and you insert the spring into the hole that you see here on the bolt stop, and then you're just going to line that up with the slot on your action carefully so you don't drop that spring. Hold it under a little pressure so that the spring doesn't pop out. Line up the pinholes, put your pin in, and then function test. So now we're moving on to the trigger housing modification. Now, we're not making any structural changes to the trigger housing. What we're doing is we're removing a little bit of material from the very front of this retention bolt. And we're going to make sure that the material we remove is not any of the material that the retention bolt puts pressure on. And so specifically, we are removing 40 thousandths of an inch from the front of this trigger housing. And all that 40 thousandths does is allow leverage for that little magazine retention spring we're no longer using. So, since we're not using that, we can definitely remove this material. Now, there's different ways to remove this. We'll show you how we do it in our shop in a second, but you'll want to mark the material you're removing, and if you're going to use a file or you're going to use a mill, again, it's 40 thousandths of an inch. You want to make sure that you don't remove material underneath that bolt. That's when you're going to get into the structural material of the trigger housing. So just mark the material that you want to remove, and then however you want to competently remove that material, this is up to you. Alright, so we've modified our trigger housing. We're going to make sure that the bolt, we're going to put our bolt in there. We're going to make sure that we did not remove any material under that bolt. As long as you only removed 40 thousandths of an inch, you'll be just fine. But as always, just double check before installing this in your rifle. As I said before, I've had better luck installing this with the safety on, but hey, doesn't really matter. So now you can see that when you line up the trigger housing, you have a smooth transition between the magwell and the front of the trigger housing. This is paramount for proper feeding of these magazines. Use your 5mm Allen key and tighten that back down. Now here's part of the choose your own adventure. Your AICS style magazine is designed to run with case overall lengths of up to 3.6 inches. Now in this case, I'm pushing the limits. This is a 3.62 inch COAL on my 338 Win Mag loads. Now you can load up to 3.625 in most of these magazines. However, you're going to have feeding issues if you push the limits. So if you're going to push the limits and use these maximum lengths in the magazine, you're going to need to remove a little bit of material to make room for the nose of these bullets on your action. Now, obviously we need to disclaim, have somebody competent do this. We are not responsible for modified actions that are done incorrectly. You want to make sure somebody competent is removing a little bit of material. You're only talking about 25, 30 thousandths of an inch max, and you're only leaving enough material for the bullet's nose. So just make sure if you're going to push the limits, have somebody competent do it. We've put everything back together. We've swapped out our bolt stop. Functions just fine. The pin's all the way into the action. We've reinstalled our modified trigger housing. We've made sure that there's no interference between your retention screw and the edge we cut. And we're ready to install the new bottom metal. The old bottom metal pops out, new bottom metal pops in. There's no machining to the stock required. This fits a standard factory Tikka inlet. It pops right in, no modification. Pretty simple. Now, it's important to note that we've machined these mag catches just a little oversized. And the reason for that is because, aftermarket stocks, they're all a little different. And none of them fit exactly the same. So that way your gunsmith can shorten your mag catch appropriately. So then you just pop it back in, pop the barreled action back into the stock, line up the recoil lug, throw your action screws back in, short one up front, long one in the rear. If it's a synthetic stock, torque these down to 45 inch-pounds. If it's a wooden stock, keep it around 35 inch-pounds. And then we're going to function test everything. We want to make sure everything works correctly. We're going to put our bolt back in and test and make sure that the bolt stop is functioning correctly. It should stop the bolt from exiting the action. And you'll be able to tell you have a longer throw because you have more travel now inside your action. Now we're going to test the trigger. Make sure the trigger functions correctly. Obviously, do this with your gun unloaded. Then we're going to test the safety, make sure the safety still functions correctly. We have had the rifle apart, we just want to make sure we put it back together properly. And then last but not least, we're going to test fit the magazine. It should be nice and snug, little to no play depending on how you have it adjusted. And this particular magazine is an accurate mag, and I like the accurate mags because they can, come in caliber specific sizes. So other magazines like the long action AICS magazines, you have to modify the feed lips. So here we have a well-used long action AICS mag. This is the real deal here. You can see functions just fine. And then we also have the 10-round AICS magazine. Use this extensively in testing this product. Fits nice and snug. Well, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. Here's one of our extended rounds, 3.62 inches. You can see chamber just fine. And didn't like to eject because I had the rifle sideways, but hey, it's also the 300 grain bullet. If it was an empty case, it would have flown right out of there. So just to reiterate, you're permanently modifying your rifle system. It is important that you have somebody competent do this install. As I said earlier, we're not responsible for bad craftsmanship on the install. If it's installed correctly, this is going to serve you for a lifetime. And it really opens up new possibilities with the Tikka platform. It allows you to make a 28 nozzler, 26 nozzler, 33 nozzler, some of the more extreme long-range calibers. This is really going to open up opportunities for just new frontiers on the Tikka side of things, and not being limited by the case overall length like we have been since the T3's inception. So thank you for watching. As always, if you have any questions regarding this install, please contact us at the shop. More than happy to answer any of your questions. If you have a gunsmith installing this, more than happy to walk them through what needs to be done to get it installed. And we just want you to have a very successful experience with this product and go out there and, man, just have a whole lot of fun shooting. So thank you for those bad lip sync, or putting up with this bad lip syncing. Happy shooting, everybody.